Good morning, Anthony Franco. I feel like I
Good
haven't
morning,
seen
Chris.
you in a solid 10 minutes, man. It's been a while. Yeah.
It's been a morning.
In 2025, a podcast host named Anthony Franco made his co-host Chris wake up super freaking early, and the rest is startup history because he murdered him. Yeah, anyway.
I run our podcast on a tight schedule, which is a good segue for you. I'm setting you up.
I appreciate the segue. Anthony, is your business too inconsistent to make profits truly sizzle? Or is there a simple system to fix what you're overlooking? In the early 1960s, a small supermarket chain owner wrestled with unpredictable store operations. Stock ran out, staff schedules were chaotic, and customers bailed. By mapping every process from shelf restocking to shift rotations, he streamlined his entire business, boosting sales and morale overnight. That no-name chain made headlines locally, proving that simple systems can rescue even most chaotic ventures. Somehow we need to actually get in our reads and our prompts to figure
The
out
company name.
what the company
Yeah,
name.
that's my bad. I missed that. Sorry, Chris.
That's okay. That company name was Anthony Franco's Supermarket. Today on How to Founder, we're going to talking about consistency, making your operational system stick. I'm Chris Franks. With me today is my, I'm going to say, tyrannical co-host who forces me to wake up early.
I like that.
And not get my beauty sleep.
I'll take it.
Anthony Franco. Today we're joined by Marianne Page, who has close to 3 decades of experience as a senior manager with McDonald's, a business known for predictable performance. Now she helps founders build reliable systems that run themselves and earn customer loyalty day in, day out. Marianne, welcome. Thank you for joining us. We've talked a bunch off air, but tell us where you're calling in from this morning.
I'm calling from UK, and in the UK, 7:45 is not early.
I mean, you guys,
we start early.
What are the normal business operating hours? If I was in the UK, when would it be acceptable for me to start scheduling calls? Is it 7? Is it 8?
Normal business hours are 9 to 5, but real business hours are like 8 till 6. And then there's McDonald's office hours, which are like 7:30 till 7:30.
I would like to work Spain office hours, which is 10 to 1 p.m. And
Chris is
I love that.
Is an entrepreneur who wants to work banker's hours. Yeah, that's
yeah.
Marianne and I were just talking about this. My prime time is 10 p.m. to 2 a.m. The problem is I also have a family, and that's not really. All right, Marianne. Just give us the high level here. So talk to me as an early stage founder. Operations is one of those things, a systematic plan to how to run my business tends to be something I kind of push towards the back. Why is it important for me as a founder to start understanding operations and creating a system early in my entrepreneurial journey?
Well, to be honest, even if you just work on your own, there are things that you do once a month or once a quarter or sometimes once a year. And every time you have to go back and go, how did I do that? Oh my God, where do I need to? And then you have to start all over again. You get onto Google and you look it up. And even capturing those as a single person, even capturing those individual routines is going to make you more efficient. So as soon as you start bringing in a team, even one team member, if you've already captured those things that you do in a routine way, it makes the training of those people so much easier, so much quicker, so much more efficient. And if and when they leave you and move on, replacing them with somebody else is also quick and efficient. It just, everything just works better when you have one right way to do everything. The trouble is, it's the trouble that I see, is that people get bogged down with the whole language of systems and processes. And I hate the word process personally. It's a horrible word. It's a blocking word. Teams hate it. Yes, of course, there are people in the world who love the word process. I love what process does, but the actual word it sounds boring and bureaucratic. And what I love to get business owners to do is to just develop their business one right way of doing things. So like at McDonald's, there is one way to do everything. There's only one way to cook French fries. It's the McDonald's way of doing it. Everybody learns. Nobody comes in as a new team member and goes, my grandmother cooks a mean French fry.
Right, exactly. I'm gonna change the way that we're gonna do cheeseburgers.
Let me show you how to do it.
Yeah, that's not gonna happen.
There's just one way to do it. Everybody learns it. So no matter where you go in the world, you can take your skill of cooking French fries in a McDonald's to any other McDonald's, anywhere in the world, anywhere in the country, whatever. So
I love this conversation because you're talking to two people that we're on episode 60 of this podcast, Marianne, and we're still winging it 99% of the time. Like we just sort of go, and I think, Anthony, I want to get your reaction to what Marianne said, because it is a really important thing. But I think as founders, oftentimes we just sort of ignore that idea that there's a good way to do things, and we should somehow figure out a way to create a model even for how people should mirror that. What's your reaction there, Anthony? Process smashes,
this is absolutely my Achilles heel. So defining a process is, I think I'd probably rather go get a root canal than define a process.
It's the word. Trust me, it's the word.
But what I also recognize, so what changed me, I would love, Marianne, I'd love your thought process on this. What switched for me is my last company. I did a lot of outsourcing to China, and it forced, we would look for materials and raw materials to bring in. And even in that circuit, or we would buy markers and bring those in. Even in that process, you had to be very specific. You had to write a specification.
Yeah.
And
what was that word? Specification?
Specification.
Like
it's one of those big college words, Chris. Sorry, I don't mean. I know I'm not supposed to use those with you, but we would have to write this specification, and that process of writing a specification made me recognize, okay, that's basically telling somebody how to make it, so that I can repeat it across manufacturers, and I started to recognize, well, if I could do that with people, my life would be so much easier. I'd love so I kind of started to tune into why it matters, but I still do not like doing it.
So I think this is great, because this is the heart of the question, Marianne. Like I'm reading a stat here that says companies with documented processes are 280% more likely to achieve their performance goals. Like there's a reason why this stuff works, but you work with people like us that are sort of allergic to that concept. How does that work? How do you help people like us actually get our minds wrapped around that? No, it's not like, doing homework. This is actually good for your business.
Well, it's interesting you're saying about winging it, because the number of businesses I go into that they're really successful, multi-million-pound businesses, and they have got there by winging it. There's like, businesses can be successful without systems. There is no question about it. But if they want to scale, if they want to grow, if they want to sell their business, then you need to capture your systems. And it's interesting when you say documenting, because I also hate the word documenting, because that implies sitting there typing up, step 1, do this. Step 2, do this. And for specifications that you were talking about, Anthony, absolutely you do.
Yeah.
But when we go to learn something, we don't enter into Google, give me the give me the document that's going to show me how to boil the perfect egg. We go, how do I boil the perfect egg? And what comes up? A bunch of videos. And the videos show you how to do it. So capturing your how-tos, as I rather call them, rather than processes, capturing your how-tos on a video is so much easier. And the best thing, and this is the other big block for business owners, they hear the expression, I've got to systemize my business. And they immediately go, oh, right, well, that means I've got to document everything that I want done. Where actually they've probably got a bunch of team members who do each task in their role to the standard that they want it done. And all they have to do is say to them, here is a lovely simple app called Loom, Loom, for anybody that's never heard of it. Press record, do your task, talk to the screen, telling it what you're doing and why you're doing it the way you're doing it. When you finish the task, press stop. You have your process, you have your how-to guide for that task. And then you systematically build those into a training system so that whoever comes, if, as I said, if people leave and are replaced by somebody else, you have those how-to videos that show them their role. They're already created, and they're not created by the business owner. They're created by the people already doing the tasks.
Anthony, it's a really interesting conversation because this is such a paradox. Oftentimes people like us start companies because we find ourselves, for me, I was in a big company. I felt stifled. I didn't feel creative. I didn't feel like I had enough control. And so we go and start companies because we don't like that structure and we want this freedom to operate. But yet we want our companies to be successful. And what you're saying, Marianne, is companies don't scale and win and succeed unless you have scalable systems, scalable processes, scalable opportunities. It's one of those kind of core conflicts, Anthony. As a founder, both of those things are true. I just want to get your thoughts on that. I mean, it's one of those difficult things, isn't it?
Well, it's because, Chris, you and I are complete egomaniac narcissists. So we believe that everybody
guilty
likes to
is charged,
like we do,
Anthony.
Right?
Guilty.
And this is another epiphany that I had. It's like some people don't want to be creative in their job. They want to punch the clock, come in, do their job, and leave. And the more chaotic you make, and the more guesswork they have to do in the job, the more anxiety and stress you're introducing to them. So for the things that require stuff to be done the same way every time, Marianne brings up a great way of documenting that so that the people beyond them can do the job kind of stress-free, almost like in a cathartic way. It's like, I'm doing it the same way. If I do it this way, I'm doing my job right, and you move on. Yeah. The thing that I've encountered, and this is kind of a tangent, this gets into, what you say sounds great, Marianne, but there are certain tasks that people feel like they don't want to share how they do it, where they feel like it's job security that they're the only ones that know. Can you talk about how you can navigate around those types of people?
Yeah, absolutely. Can I first say that the creative people are actually helped by systems, because all of that basic foundational stuff that they hate, if they don't have to think about it, as you just said, then they can get that out of the way really quickly and then free their mind to be creative.
It's a great point. It's a great point. For the creativity comes from constraint. So I do. Yeah. You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Yeah. For the individuals who want to protect their job, they in my mind, they are actually protecting themselves out of a job, because in any business, you want a team of team players. And at McDonald's, we were always taught to replace ourselves, because if you replace yourself in your role, you get to take on more responsibility, or you get to take on a new challenge, with more opportunity, or you just get to fulfill your potential. So you want people who are not, I don't know how Bible story you guys are, but there's a Bible story about
bring it.
the
It's great.
talents.
Yeah, we've talked
And
about
people who-
Pavlov off the air. It's, we talked about Greek mythology already. Biblical stories are great as well.
There's a story in the Bible about the talents for anybody that doesn't know the story. And these guys were given talents. One guy buried his talent in the ground, and the others did something to multiply their talents. And the people who are, it's mine, I'm not telling anybody how you do it. And funnily enough, I'm working with a business right now where there is somebody like that in it. They're not team players, and you want a team who want to support each other, but also who want to grow and develop. And in order to do that, everybody has to share. Everybody has to be willing to train the next person along. You need to. We all need to have businesses where ultimately everybody is replaceable, and that sounds really scary. But you want the business owner to be replaceable. And actually, you said about the egomaniacs and narcissists. I think you said narcissists. Maybe I'm just labeling you two guys. I don't know.
No, go right ahead, Marianne. Call us a narcissist.
But they are the last people who want to replace themselves. And actually, business owners, because we are all, as business owners, control freaks. We want to hold on really tight, and that's also something that limits us. If we want to be the ones that create the one right way that everything gets done, and we don't see it as a way to involve and engage our team, then we're keeping the team down, but we're also keeping our business down as well.
It's a very common complaint from almost every business owner. I'm in the weeds and I can't get out because I can't get people to do my job like I can do it. And that's a systems problem, right? It's
absolutely.
It's common,
system, right? The system that in every business, there are 4 sets of systems. So there's the sexy systems, which are, your marketing, your branding, the look at me systems, that most business owners want to spend most time on. 60% of their time, energy, investment is spent on the sexy systems. Then there's the security systems, which are your finances, your legal, etc. And most business owners will abdicate most of that to a good finance person or an accountant or whatever. The next set are the service systems, the day-to-day operating nuts and bolts of your business. And when a business owner says, I'm going to systemize my business, they are the systems they focus on because it's the operating day-to-day. But the systems that they miss out on are the 4th set, and that's the sticky systems. And the sticky systems are what build your culture. They're the systems that make all of the others stick. And they are hiring the right people. So your hiring system, making sure that you get the right people and that you don't settle for anybody that isn't right. Your training system, which ensures that all of your other systems get properly trained in, that there are how-to videos, that there is a proper training system, not just, hey, John, Fred's new, can you show him how you do that? It's not Chinese whispers training, it's proper training. And then your feedback system. In the UK, we're rubbish at feedback. We're very too polite, too nice. But your feedback system is huge. Giving people feedback that makes sure that they stick to the system, that makes sure that they are good team players, that makes sure that they work to your values. And those 3 sticky systems make all of the others stick. But very, very few business owners have a system for training, have a system for feedback. They see performance management as, well, in fact, it is seen in most businesses as discipline, as, we're going to give them some performance management. It means you're going to give them a kicking. It doesn't mean we're going to tell them how brilliant they are. We're going to encourage them to develop further. So those, I talk a lot these days about the sticky systems because a lot of business owners get the idea of systemization. They want an operation that works like clockwork without them. So they spend a lot of time and money and effort on developing systems for their service, for their operation, but they don't make them stick. And unless you make them stick, you're done.
I think so I think I get it. Let's just to recap sort of what as a founder, I need to start investing in systems to create a replicable, scalable process early. I don't need to wait until, it's something where I need to start investing in that early. Secondarily is even though that it's something that you might kind of balk at initially because you think you're just creating processes, et cetera, that's going to give you the freedom and flexibility to actually go do the work you want to do as a founder and CEO versus being stuck in the weeds, et cetera.
Yeah.
Anthony, you and I have talked about this in the past. This is what I struggle with at Clever Funnel. Like the company that I sold previously was my energy, enthusiasm, et cetera, was the thing that got us to a particular point, but my inability to build systems really hampered us from going to that next level. Have you had that experience, Anthony? And you were able to kind of break through that. Talk about your experience about when you moved from just figuring stuff out, that kind of fly by the seat of your pants, and actually started to build better, more replicable systems.
I would say that we did an okay job at it. We were absolutely not McDonald's. And ironically, I got fired from my McDonald's job. So I used to work for McDonald's and got fired from that McDonald's job. So I wear that with a little bit of shame and a little bit of honor.
Well, you should. That is the appropriate.
Never quite learned how to do fries properly.
No, exactly. Actually, really quick tangent. I called in sick to go on a date with somebody that I worked with, and the date didn't go well, so she ratted me out.
Ironically,
Marianne,
that was the 17th worst date.
I think your name was Marianne. Actually, I think your name was Marianne. That is, she wasn't Scottish, so I think I'm a.
I'm not Scottish, Anthony. I'm English.
English. Well,
Northeast of England.
Apologies. I mistook your accent. My mistake. I know.
I'll just call you
mean
Canadian.
that as an insult.
That's exactly. It's a better insult just to call him Texan. Just like me. Call him a Texan.
No, call me Canadian. That'll work.
Yeah.
Where was I, Chris? What was the question that I'm trying to answer here?
Talk about how you broke through this gap. Like you said, you did an okay job of breaking through this systems thing. When you were with Effective, like you guys grew till hundreds of people. Like that's not easy to do.
So I didn't. One of my great co-founders did. Her name was Daisy. She was responsible for systems and operations, and she just did a great job creating a team to do the things that you're talking about, Marianne. Operational systems, how do we hire? What's the process for hiring? And performance reviews. And she just did a phenomenal job in instilling that in the leaders in the organization and then making sure that it filtered down. So I can't take any credit for it. Outside of the fact that I kept my hands off of it.
I stayed out of the way.
I purposely stayed out of it.
This is the work that you do, and I think it's one of those things. First of all, as a founder, we need to have the self-awareness to know, hey, if I'm breaking systems because that's just who I am, I need to have help here. When you walk into these businesses, Marianne, how do you find that with a founder? How often do you have to tell the founder, like Anthony, go sit in the corner? Stop. Let the adults talk.
Quite a lot. It's really interesting. I'm glad Anthony brought up the title operations manager, because most of the businesses that I work with, they absolutely need an operations manager, because they are the well, in the words of the Gino Wickman book Traction, they are the visionary and they need an integrator. I prefer operations manager because it makes more sense to me. But that second in command role is the hardest to hire for, because they need to be in your culture. They need to understand your culture. They need to get why you work in the way you do. And what most of the businesses that, in my experience, do is they try to hire in somebody as an operations manager rather than growing their own. And I love the idea of especially with relatively new founders, that if they have an ability to spot talent and then develop it, like the Sorcerer's Apprentice type development. Come on, let me show you how I want this business to run. Right. Give me your ideas. What do you think? Sort of growing somebody from within. But that operations manager has to be able to pull all of the strands together, but they also need to understand the culture. And all too often, a business owner, I know this is a bit of a tangent, but a business owner will bring somebody in at that level who then they've learned how to do things their way, and they want to bring their way into a business that has been built around, it's like bringing somebody in from Burger King and they try to bring in Burger King's systems and McDonald's. No, this is the McDonald's way. Yeah, but I've got a much better way. We did it like this at Burger King. So it can cause a lot of friction. I'd be interested, actually, Anthony, did you hire in your ops manager, or did you promote them from within?
She was she just grew with us as the company grew. So she was very, very, very it was me, my other co-founder, and a couple of folks, and they were like, we need Daisy. and so we recognized early that we needed Daisy, just because we had worked with her in the past.
Yeah.
So we got fortunate to have her as a part of it. I have a question for you also, Marianne, because this happened to me quite a bit. So how do you balance this systemized operations with wanting people to think for themselves? And sometimes a system can take you and run you, like you could be following a system right off a cliff, right? So how do you balance that this is the McDonald's way, but also you need to snap out of the thing that you're doing every day to make sure that what you're doing makes sense?
Oh, brilliant question. Thank you, because I love it. So for me, it's if I can take you to when I was a restaurant manager, I would have people coming in to start work at a McDonald's, and they were sort of low pin, hair down around their face, didn't want to talk to anybody, didn't want to interact. And within a couple of weeks, when you give them training and they can take ownership for their role, they start to grow. They start to. It's like you give people the systems, give them ownership for what you want them to do, and they start to think for themselves. They start to show initiative. I get it said to me so many times. Oh, people today, they've got no initiative, they've got no common sense. For me, initiative comes from giving people both the training to do their role and the development to grow as a person. Quite often, training and development goes training and development. It's like it's one word. Training, giving somebody the systems that they can take ownership for their role so they can perform it to a high standard, but then developing them as an individual, pushing them, challenging them, getting them to question things, giving them permission to question things. Because we talk about, we'll get a bunch of people together in a meeting, and then we don't allow them to have ideas. We don't allow them to question and challenge because we're control freaks. And until we get past that and say to people, right, come on, we've got a challenge here. How are we going to fix it? It's about the language of we and us versus me and them. And when you've got that sort of a team together, for me, people do show initiative. People do take more risks because you've given them the confidence to do that. But until they are able to take ownership for their role, then they're still fully focused on getting that right so they don't get shouted at. So once they've cracked their role, then they can grow, then they can take on more.
It strikes me as like that consciously competent, consciously
Yeah,
incompetent
absolutely.
curve. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I think that I understand. I think it's really critically important. I think one of the things from this part of the conversation is making sure that you do have that help. We talked about the Gino Wickman book and integrator versus visionary. Statistically speaking, people that are truly integrators that have that mindset, that personality, are actually more rare than visionaries. And so, finding that right person and making sure you create that partnership, really critically important as a founder. But let's get into kind of more tactical stuff. As a founder, we've talked about two different areas, and I want to get your distinctions on both and how I should approach those as a founder. One is tasks. I need to run payroll every single month at this time, and I need to document that. I need to have, if I ever, we used to call that
payroll.
I used to think of that as the bus test, and the bus test meaning, or the nicer way to say that was the lottery test. If you win the lottery and somebody leaves, how would this business continue to function? So there's tasks, but then there are overall systems. And so talk to me about, in your work, how do you coach founders on the task-oriented stuff and then the overall systems, how the company works together, how we think about integration, how work gets moved and passed across the organization?
Yeah. So first of all, the tasks. What I do is get every business owner to get every group of individuals, or in smaller businesses, the individual who works on a particular system, on a particular area, to map out their routine tasks. So what are the things that get done every day? What are the things that get done every week on a particular day, et cetera, et cetera? So to map out all of those, and then to start creating their how-to videos. In terms of the bigger system, one of the exercises I absolutely love doing is mapping out the in some businesses you would call it the operational journey, in others you would call it the customer journey, but it's looking at, not from a marketing perspective, but from the customer contacts us. How do we move them through our business? What are the areas of the business that they move through? And we have a big roll of brown paper, and we mark out swim lanes for the customer and the different roles in the business that get to touch the customer at some point. And then we go, right, let's look at each individual step. So the phone rings. Who answers the phone? Well, anybody that's not busy. Well, immediately you've got a problem there, because if it's anybody that's not busy, we're all busy. Right. So, how long does it take to answer the phone? What is said when they answer the phone? We get really down into the weeds. How is information collected? Are there particular questions that need to be asked? And then we map out system by system. So this is onboarding a client. Here's our onboarding system. This is a delivery of a service. Here's our delivery system. This is our invoicing. But it actually, you map it out as one long stream. So for the business owner and the team, they're able to see how what they do or don't do right at the beginning when they onboard a client impacts the team invoicing, for example, if they don't get the right details or whatever it might be. So that is the best way, and the most fun way as well, to get to look at all of those individual systems and to make sure that they are streamlined, to make sure that they are simple, logical, and repeatable, which is something I'm a big believer in.
That exercise was so incredibly powerful, because as you actually go through you're like, oh, this makes total sense. Like there were so many duplicate, and nobody was actually responsible, or was accountable, like all those basic management stuff. It was remarkable. Anthony, I want to go one more thing before we get into the speed round, Marianne, which is, I think that one of the things we talk about in startups so much is that we need to be learning organizations. We need to run tests. We need to experiment, and then we need to document results. Documenting results and creating those systematic learnings for a company is one of the large gaps. You as the founder you might have this knowledge in the back of your head, but hire number 5 or hire number 10 doesn't. They have not been there when you experimented or made mistakes, et cetera. It just your reaction to that, and how have you thought about that in your life as a founder?
Yeah.
So go ahead,
sorry,
Marianne.
No,
No, go ahead. I thought the question was going to be, but Marianne, you're going to be better at this than answering it than I am.
Well,
Yeah, so I'll go with you, Marianne, and then get your reaction, Anthony.
yeah, I was actually going to go back to the way McDonald's look at challenges, and that is because I've taken it and use it with my clients, and that is actually their planning system, which forces them to sit down every quarter and look at, well, actually they do it every month, but look at things that have gone really well and things that they want to change for the coming month. But they map out a plan. Let me start at the beginning. So they've got this thing called 3-1-90 planning. And it actually came out of the fact that McDonald's really struggled in the early 90s. The share price plummeted to $11. It's currently somewhere up near 300, but it really crashed. So they came up with this planning system where they would split the business into chunks of activity. So, if anybody listening had a property, so they'd have place. If place, promotion, product, people, and price. And they split the business up into these chunks. And then went, okay, what do we want each of those areas to look like in 3 years' time? Just top level. What do we really want to have in place in 3 years' time? And then they come back and go, okay, if we're going to be there in 3 years, what do we need to do for the next 12 months? And then, okay, if we want to be there in 12 months, what do we need to do for the next 90 days? How are we going to move forward? But in bringing together groups of people to look at those every 90 days, that's when they also assess the things that they've tried out and failed. So it's not a do once and it's done. This is like a momentum, a rhythm building system that they've put in place that makes sure that everything gets acknowledged, tested, that the information is cascaded to everybody, because at some level, not every crew member on the front counter of fries, but every manager and above is involved in some way in this planning system. So what I say to the founders that I work with is map out. It's a roadmap as well. So map out where you want to be in 3 years' time in each area of your business, and then sit down with the team to build the roadmap to get you where you want to be. Involve them and get that. You were saying, Anthony, as well about people not wanting to take initiative and so on. If you involve them in the planning for the business, if you get them to talk about then they will go, well, didn't we try that and fail? Yeah, we tried that then, but what wasn't in place back then was this, and this. Let's give it another go now because we're in a different place. The logic has changed. So that's the way I would approach that testing out and learning lessons thing.
I think it's such an important point, because one of the things is we've already tried that. It's like, well, yeah, but we were a different company. Anthony, how have you done that?
Yeah, so I think the analogy that Marianne said, if who's supposed to answer the phone, it's anybody who's not busy. You need an owner. And so when you're implementing change and also saying, hey, we need to tweak this thing or tweak that thing, that change needs to have an owner. It needs to have somebody that volunteers to do it and that is held accountable by the team to do it. So run, you have these systems in place, but now you need to make a tweak organizationally. You need somebody to own that tweak until they can see that it's simple, logical, and repeatable, like Marianne said. So I think it's a really good framework.
Yeah, one of the things that I do need to say at this point, though, is that business, and this is top of mind because I'm working with somebody who's very like this at the minute. Business owners are very fast reacting. Small business owners, one of the beauties of working with small businesses compared to corporate is that they're agile. They make decisions. Sometimes business owners can go, oh, that's not working after 2 minutes. And they've not given it a try, and they're off to the next thing, like fireworks, sort of, oh, I see this and this. And it's like, no, let's have a system for, let's give it a 90 days. Let's give it 1 month, but let's give it time to work before we dismiss it as not working and switch to something else.
Very fair criticism. I've seen that quite a bit. I've done that quite a bit, where it's like, we've tried to think this thing for a week, it's not working, let's switch. And it's like, well, sometimes things take time to simmer, and you can't make stew in 15 minutes. You got to give it at least a whole day to marinate. Yeah.
Well, it's like with the same with people as well, because it's when I talk about a hiring system, I always say nobody is hired until they have passed a structured probation period. And what many business owners do is they will hire somebody, and then they just leave them to sort of drift into employment, and they don't give them structure, and then they write them off because, oh my God, they're rubbish. Well,
they're a terrible employee. This person doesn't get it.
Have you actually trained them? Have you given them feedback? Have you told them that you think they're rubbish and given them the opportunity to not be rubbish? And particularly like in a McDonald's environment, when you're bringing people in who've been often chucked out of school, or it's their first job, you've got to tell them how to be an employee. They don't know how to be an employee, so give them every opportunity to succeed. But we do, as business owners, we do write people off really quickly without looking in the mirror and going, have I given them everything they needed in order to succeed? Yes or no? If it's no, go back and give them it. If it's yes, fair enough, let them go.
Really interesting points. I think that the takeaway that I'm having from this part of the conversation is whatever your system is, and the thing that's popping into my head is the Netflix culture deck about how they documented their systems, the way that they think about stuff is have some sort of a system where you can document the things that you've learned. Top level, don't just assume. And then the second piece of, just what we just talked about, Marianne, which is how do you, when you go and create an experiment or you create a test, let the test go. Don't make snap judgments. Be patient, be humble in that process. The analogy, Anthony, for me is when I would have somebody create, a multivariate ad test where we're testing, 4 different ad sets and languages, et cetera. And people would call me up in day 1 and say, "Oh, let's turn all the other ads out because this one's clearly the winner." I'd be like, "No, you gotta wait." And then the last day, another ad would take it. All right, are you ready, Marianne? We didn't even warn you for this. We're just springing it on you. This is called the speed round. We're gonna go quickly. I'm going to ask you a questions. Just give me your gut reaction. Tell me, whatever. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Is checklists, are they essential or are they overkill? Or are they lame?
Essential.
Document now or wing it until you actually have more revenue, have it figured out.
That's a softball.
Capture on video now.
I like it. Invest in team training or prioritize other
invest in team training. I'm not even going to listen to the second half.
I like it. Automate everything. So if I can automate things, should I automate it or should I keep me involved to make sure that I'm understanding what's going on in the business?
Automate with human checks.
I like it. Seek external audits or entrust your internal people to know what's going on.
Ooh, both. I mean, if you train people,
I like
right,
it. Yeah, that's probably good. That's a good one. I like false question. Really good conversation, Anthony. What have you learned? What are our takeaways?
Our takeaways. So, I like this thing that for everything there's one way. There's the company way of doing it, the McDonald's way of doing it. I like that. I thought that was really interesting. Documenting process of video is a huge win using Loom. This requires team players. So having systems and repeatable systems requires people that are team players. Like people with the Barry versus multiply talents, right? So it's the multiply talents is the people you're looking for. The 4 types of systems that she pointed out, I like that segmentation: marketing, security, finance, services, and sticky systems. In other words, training, hiring, and feedback. 2 more: training is how to do the job. Development is growing them as an autonomous individual. I love that idea. And then I've heard this before as a McDonald's employee. It's things need to be simple, logical, and repeatable. I just that is. If you're building a system, they need to follow those tenets.
Marianne, I've got just a quick question. Just one follow-up. How does McDonald's change things? At some point in time, there's got to be some sort of experimentation. Do they have like a labs or an innovation department? How do they?
Yeah, absolutely. They've always had. Started with the tennis court with Ray Kroc. If you've seen the founder, and they've always experimented. But that planning system that I talked about, they build experimentation and that's what keeps them like the meerkats of the industry rather than the hamsters. They are constantly looking for opportunities and looking for issues that they need to overcome. So that's but they do have a restaurant. They used to just do it in working restaurants. Now they've got a restaurant where they do it.
I like it. Deep dive recommendations. E-Myth Revisited, always a good one. Scaling Up by Vern Harnish. There's a great article called The Power of Checklists in Business by Process Street. There's a podcast called Behind the Counter, Simple Systems for Business Wins, hosted by Systems Pal, your Systems Pal. Marianne, what do you recommend? How can we get in touch with you? How do we find out more information about this stuff?
I recommend Built to Sell by John Warrilow, because we should all be building our business to sell it. That's, even if we're not going to. Obviously, I recommend Simple, Logical, Repeatable, which is my own book. And also, if I may, Mission to Manage, for those of you who have people and I want to manage people well, rather than staff, which is another word that I hate. How can you get in touch? You can email me directly, me@mariannepage.com, or contact me through my website, which is mariannepage.com. So all very, very simple. But I've got
who do you like to work with the most? Like, who are your ideal clients? Because, we have this podcast that doesn't seem to be very well organized. So anybody any businesses that have teams ultimately are my sweet spot. At the minute, it's anybody with turnover of between 500,000 to 30 million, a team of 3 to 200. But it's really because it's about systems only exist to make life easier for people. And if a system doesn't make somebody's life easier, whether it's yours, your customers, or your teams, then it's the wrong system. So I'm actually all about people, because that's where it's just about people. It's about building high performing teams. So if you've got a team, then let's talk. Have you got teams? Anthony, I think create a system that both of us will ignore and just do things.
Exactly.
No, Anthony's okay. He's got Daisy.
Exactly.
Right,
not anymore. Daisy's went on to bigger and better things.
Probably have much bigger and better things for the sound of it. Pretty talented. Marianne, thank you so much for joining us today. We really appreciate it. It was an awesome conversation. And I think you made 2 believers. We got more systems. Anthony, what do we have coming up?
So we have I've said this before, and I think it's actually going to happen, but we have a founder spotlight with Nick Jane. So he's coming up, and we're going to just do 5 questions with Nick. He came on our podcast before and did a tactic strategy session like we just did with Marianne. For everybody listening, follow Marianne. Go to mariannepage.com. Follow us. Just go to howtofounder.com, where you can follow us and subscribe to us on YouTube, LinkedIn, and all of those things. And I will end it like I always do. May your venture grow faster than Chris's hair. Thank you, everybody, for listening.